Good evening and welcome to the Daily Report. It is the 27th of March and tonight we tell you all the stories that are of course hitting headlines, and then later on when it comes to the marketplace we tell you everything that is happening in the Hustler Fund. Elizabeth Nkuku, the CEO of the Financial Inclusion Fund, is already within our premises. That is later on, but for now let's take a look at the highlights.
Tonight, the government halts distribution of NPK fertilizer, citing failure to meet specified quality standards.
Yenyewe iko na mchanganyiko wa mbolea ya mbuzi ambayo kama ndio tungetaka kununua labda tungeipata kwa majirani zetu, lakini hatukufanya hivyo kwa sababu tulikuwa tuna trust serikali itatuletea kitu ambacho kimedhibitishwa, kimepimwa na kimepitishwa na KEBS.
Also tonight, negotiations between the government and the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union have once again reached an impasse as both sides disagree. Government representatives insist that doctors suspend their strike for talks to continue. And according to a report from a survey conducted by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, 44.7% of Kenyans believe that corruption is rampant, attributing it to the high cost of living.
Welcome once again to this live broadcast. My name is Hibak Said. On sign language interpretation tonight is Catherine Simaloy. To start us off, following an uproar from Kenyans over the Fertilizer Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development has finally halted the distribution of NPK. This comes after that particular ministry halted the plants due to the contamination of that particular fertilizer. Let's look at that story. All right, we will be looking at that story in a few, but first, maybe let's go to the second story. Talks between the government and the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union have yet again failed after both parties altered or differed while the government, there we go. Majority of Kenyans perceive corruption levels in the country to be high, with the average bribe that Kenyans part with being 11,625. In a report from a survey conducted by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, 44.7% of Kenyans opined that the prevalence of corruption is high, attributing this to the high cost of living and no action taken on reported corruption cases. Sheila Chelangat tells us more.
A majority believe that the prevalence of corruption in the country is increasing and has permeated in crucial institutions. Many reporting to have accessed a particular service, institution or county government only after paying a bribe. The national average bribe almost doubling from 6,865 Kenyan shillings in 2022 to 11,625 Kenyan shillings in 2023, the largest share of bribes paid while seeking employment, application for passports, seeking for police abstracts, obtaining tenders and solving land conflicts in public institutions.
In Baringo, Bursary in particular was worst affected. In Siaya, again, it was medical attention and public health clearance certificate. It was 100%.
Respondents paid the largest amount of bribes to the National Transport and Safety Authority, the judiciary, the Kenya Bureau of Standards and the county government offices. Most Kenyans ranking the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government as the most corrupt, followed by health, transport, defense, education and lands.
So you can see the impact of corruption in terms of unemployment, the issue of nepotism, the issue of deliberate delay, whereby it becomes a source of extortion. And that's why like in the police, we are really insisting that we need automation.
The respondents attributing this corruption to the high cost of living and no action taken to reduce corruption cases. Among the recommendation by the EACC in tackling the graft menace include accounting officers to enforce existing anti-corruption regulation and promote a culture of integrity and ethics in their agencies.
Don't take Don't ask and don't receive. Don't give.
This survey was conducted between October and December 2023 and sampled 5,100 households drawn from the 47 counties. Sheila Chalangat for TV47.
All right, of course, you can follow us on our socials at TV47KE on X, and you can also follow us on Facebook, that is at TV47. Now, talks between the government and the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union has yet again failed after both parties differed. While government representatives demanded that the doctors should suspend the strike for the talks to proceed, KMPDU maintained that the strike will only be called off if their demands stipulated in the 2017 CBA are met. Elizabeth Atieno with the details.
3 p.m. Wednesday afternoon at the KICC building, Cabinet Secretaries of Health, Treasury, Labour and Public Service, as well as the Council of Governors and the SRC chair, held a meeting with the Doctors' Union to resolve the ongoing strike. However, things took an ugly turn as some governors questioned if it was proper for the meeting to continue, as KMPDU was yet to suspend the strike as was instructed by the court.
And the court order, specifically number 6, which requires that for this whole of nation process to take place, you should have gone back to work and there should be no strike. Is my limited understanding. Maybe it's because I have a fake online degree, but I want to believe that that the orders are clear and they don't need any complicated English to understand them.
You are raising the same doubt that already the court order has said, for avoidance of that doubt that you are having in your mind.
So that's why we say we are not competently constituted to argue these matters because you're not in court.
Later, journalists were asked to leave the meeting, which transitioned to a closed-door one. But about 10 minutes after the closed-door meeting, all representatives from the government walked out of the meeting, leaving doctors in the room. A clear indication that all was not well, and both parties had different stories to tell the public.
We have concluded the meeting. We have asked the union anytime between now and 1st of April that if they comply with the ruling and lift the strike or stay the strike or suspend it, then we will proceed to call the next whole of nation approach meeting.
Evening, as you are to start the meeting, they decided to all stream out of the engagement, saying that they don't bother and they don't care how long the strike takes. They don't care how many Kenyans die. They don't care whether there are no doctors in the hospital or not. They are ready to wait until the next day in court on 3rd is when they will engage us.
And as the push and pull between the government and KMPDU intensifies, the situation is getting dire for thousands of Kenyans in need of health services. Earlier today, the Council of Governors directed all doctors to go back to work, pursuant to the court order, failure to which they risk facing disciplinary action. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Following an uproar from Kenyans over fake fertilizer, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development has finally halted the distribution of NPK fertilizer to farmers under the subsidy plan due to non-compliance with the necessary requirement. The mentioned company is one of the many that provides fertilizer to the National Cereals and Produce Board for distribution as part of the government subsidy scheme. Mike Kagongo reports.
The distribution of NPK fertilizer has been suspended by the Kenyan government on the grounds that it does not fulfill the required quality criteria. The government, via the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, acknowledged that some contentious brands are subpar in response to a significant public uproar. In a letter, State Department of Agriculture Principal Secretary Paul Rono asked NCPB Managing Director Joseph Kimote to suspend the NPK 102610 manufactured by a local farm immediately. In addition, Kimoto was directed to look into and find out the fertilizer specifications prior to reintroducing it as part of the subsidy scheme. According to the PS, the supplier will be penalized and made to bear the entire cost if the fertilizer in question does not satisfy the specified standards. This comes as farmers in Mugamba Shiora village, Morindoko in Kirinyaga County were on Wednesday morning angered after buying goat compost manure mixed with sand from NCPB depot in Embu, disguised as subsidized fertilizer.
Fertilizer yenyewe iko na mchanganyiko wa mbolea ya mbuzi ambayo kama ndio tungetaka kununua labda tungeipata kwa majirani zetu, lakini hatukufanya hivyo kwa sababu tulikuwa tuna trust serikali itatuletea kitu ambacho kimedhibitishwa, kimepimwa na kimepitishwa na KEBS.
Tua hii area yote hii yetu yote, hii ya Mugamba Shiora inanunua mafi ya mbuzi. Na ni kwa nini wewe Ruto? Unatufanyia hivyo kwa nini?
Kuangalia ati fertilizer tunaitoa kwa makumbi ya serikali. Kumaanisha kabla ingia kwa hizo stores za serikali lazima kungekuwa na mtu wa kudhibitisha hii fertilizer ni fertilizer halali, fertilizer mzuri, fertilizer yenye inafaa.
The farmers accuse the government of swindling them even when they are financially incapable to buy a second batch of fertilizer. They said they were on the verge of losing a whole crop season. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
All right. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki has revealed that the government will provide 4,000 acres of the Chakama Ranch where the Shakahola deaths occurred to put up a memorial to bury bodies that will not have been identified by their families. According to Kindiki, the memorial will also serve as a reminder of the atrocities committed in the Shakahola land, where over 400 bodies were discovered and dug from mass graves.
It is a relief for the families of those who died in the Shakahola forest, where 429 bodies were unearthed from graves after fasting to death in an attempt to see Jesus. The bodies, which have been in the morgue for a year now.
In March last year, one of the worst tragedies to ever occur on the soil of our country occurred in this county. Just north of Malindi, at a place called Shakahola, we lost so many people.
Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, while speaking in Kilifi County, said that the national government will pay for transport expenses for families who cannot afford to transport bodies to their respective homes after being released from the Malindi sub-county mortuary.
All those bodies who have been identified by their loved ones, either through DNA or physical identification or fingerprint identification, which are enough from where we sit, they will have their loved ones to bury and give them a send-off that is going to give them closure.
This comes following cries from affected families who had faced logistical challenges to transport bodies of their loved ones for burial.
Iwapo tutapewa huo mwili, vile tutausafirisha mpaka Western, itakuwa ni vigumu kidogo.
Mimi nimetoka Meru na kupeleka mwili mmoja kutoka hapa mpaka Meru ni kama 150,000. Na mimi ni mtu mwanzo sina kazi yangu ni ya uchuzi ya kuuza kahawa na baiskeli ndio huwa nauza. Hata nikapewa hiyo mili yote nikapewa ndio hii. Sina uwezo wa kusika.
Kindiki also mentioned that once legal barriers are removed, a commission of inquiry already established by the president will initiate proceedings to hold public officials accountable for any action that may have contributed to the occurrence of the atrocities.
A judicial commission of inquiry will recommend prosecution and other measures, including dismissal, lustration, condemnation, vilification, any form of punishment that can shame those of us who had an opportunity to mitigate that occurrence and they did not.
Chief suspect Paul Mackenzie and his followers have been in police custody since last year, April, even as investigations and court proceedings continue. Anne Odida, TV47.
Thank you, Anne. The government has released 23 billion shillings as capitation money to public secondary schools. Of the total amount, 7 billion shillings will cater for junior secondary schools, while 16 billion shillings has been allocated to free day secondary school education program. And as Andrine Kilemi now reports, the delay in the disbursement of capitation funds has left schools struggling with debts.
After weeks of complaints from school heads, parents, union officials and other education stakeholders, the government now says it has released 23 billion shillings to public secondary schools as capitation money.
Ahead of schools closing and to ensure the schools are well prepared for the start of the next term, the ministry, the government of William Samoei Ruto has given us the second tranche of allocation of the capitation.
Of the total amount, 7 billion shillings will cater for capitation for public schools at the junior secondary school level, while 16 billion shillings will cover capitation grants under the free day secondary school education program. The funds are set to be received in schools before learners close for April holidays next week.
We are expecting government money soon. We got a report from the ministry that as from 26th up to Friday this week, we'll be receiving funds from the government. So that will be a plus to us and it will help us pay our workers promptly.
The government had committed to allocate 22,244 shillings annually per learner, which was to be disbursed in installments of 50% in Term 1, 30% in Term 2, and 20% in Term 3. Schools have been under pressure from suppliers for defaulting on payments, with day secondary schools which heavily rely on capitation funds bearing the biggest brunt.
It has been very, very difficult for the schools to operate. Most of the principals of schools, let me tell you, they've been deliberately absenting themselves from school because immediately they step into that school, the creditors come in and they're demanding for payment. And the principals do not have any avenue. The board of management do not have any way.
Saa hii mashule yanatapatapa, hawana mwelekeo, sababu hata walimu wale ambao wameajiriwa na wazazi wanadai, wazazi wanatozwa pesa mingi za michezo, za kulipa au walimu ambao wameajiriwa na shule na board. Kwa hivyo wanasumbuka, tunaona kama tumerudi katika zile enzi za zamani wakati tulikuwa tunatoa karo shule na tunaambiwa shule ni za bure.
And although the funds will be hitting school accounts just about a week to the end of the first term, it will be a relief for principals across the country who have been pushing for release of the funds. Andrine Kilemi, TV47.
Thank you, Andrine. Tonight, the ODM party's top leadership has moved in to forestall an imminent fallout in the ongoing succession battle to succeed party leader Raila Odinga. ODM chairman John Mbadi, who says he has consulted with Odinga who is currently outside the country, has called for restraint from the party's deputy leaders, Wycliffe Oparanya and Hassan Joho, to avoid causing panic among party supporters. And as Apollo Kamau reports, the Orange Party may reschedule its grassroots election scheduled for April.
After a week of intense campaigns and the emergence of factional rivalry to succeed party leader Raila Odinga, ODM top leadership has now moved in to bring order in the Orange Party by telling the party's two deputies, Hassan Joho and Wycliffe Oparanya, to exercise restraint in their campaigns.
I fear that the actions and utterances of the last few days are not in the best interest of the party and of those of the party leader, who is keen on an orderly, inclusive, and impactful agenda for the party. In the meantime, I would want to call upon the two deputy party leaders, Ali Hassan Joho and Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, both tested and tried leaders in their own right, to provide leadership at this critical moment as we await guidance on the next steps.
ODM chairman John Mbadi, who says he has the blessings of Odinga, who is out of the country to campaign for the African Union Commission chairmanship, said Odinga will contest for the presidency in 2027, which is why Joho and Oparanya should hold their horses.
Our party leader is still going to be in the ballot in 2027. That is the position of ODM. We are talking about party leader taking another assignment. If he does take the assignment, he is going to leave the party to be managed in his absence.
Badi spoke a day after one of the party's diehard members, Embakasi East MP Babu Owino and Saboti MP Caleb Hamisi, joined forces with Githongori MP Gathoni wa Mushomba to form a new political outfit called Team Kusikiza Ground, saying Azimio and Kenya Kwanza have failed to fight for Kenyans.
And this is a new team, the young blood, the fresh breath that is going to breathe breath into the dry bones of the problems facing Kenyans.
Over the weekend, the battle to succeed Odinga in case he clinches the AUC seat raised the stakes in the Orange Party after a section of Luo Nyanza MPs rooted for minority leader in the National Assembly and Ugunja MP Opiyo Wandayi.
Raila Amolo Odinga has already indicated to us the person he would like to take over the ODM party in the meantime, to hold brief for him in the meantime as he goes to AU. Yes. And I'm just informing the country and the nation that the person is Opiyo Wandayi.
Former Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho has intensified lobbying for his bid after hosting a section of politicians from the coast, among them UDA's Hassan Omar.
We are major stakeholders katika hiki chama. Na mimi mpaka sasa sijaona kiongozi yote mwingine anaweza kuleta watu kwa pamoja kama ndugu yetu Hassan.
Apul Kamau, TV47.
Now, late renowned journalist Rita Tinina has been eulogized as a kind and loving person who was loved by many. During her burial at Nosupeni Farm, Olekirkira in Narok County, Tinina's family and friends have said that she was a peace-loving lady with colleagues from various media houses, leading journalists in mourning her death. Tinina, who is survived by her 8-year-old daughter, was found dead in her house in Nairobi's Kileleshwa area on 17th of March, with an autopsy exercise revealing she died of severe pneumonia.
It is well.
A cloud of sadness and sorrow engulfed friends and family who had come to pay their last respects to late journalist Rita Tinina. Tinina, whose lifeless body was found in her house in Kileleshwa, has been eulogized as a peace-loving lady.
She was a pillar of strength and a source of comfort to us. No task was too big or too small for her.
We pray that she continue resting in eternal peace. And what last request, we pray that if there are roses in heaven, please, Lord, pluck a bunch and hand to Rita.
A fellow journalist have reminisced her helpful and welcoming nature, saying her stories were impactful to society at large.
Fika wakati huu na kwa mazishi kuna vitu vizuri vinasemwa kuhusu yule anayezikwa. Nafikiri inarudishia jamii heshima yake.
Alikuwa mtu mnyenyekevu. Unajua mara nyingi watu wakifanikiwa maishani, wakipata umaarufu wa aina fulani, watu wanaanza kuwa na kiburi, lakini Rita hakuwa na hayo. Alikuwa ni mtu ambaye alikuwa mnyenyekevu, anasaidia wengine.
Hata ishuka nilioivaa tulinunua na Rita, assignment yetu ya mwisho Eldoret.
Political leaders were also in attendance to bid the late Tinina farewell. Tinina is survived by her 8-year-old daughter.
It is
Vera Alberta, TV47.
And may her soul rest in eternal peace. Moving on, drama unfolded at the Gitaraka police line in Mwea sub-county, Mbeere South sub-county, after angry residents stormed the police line baying for the blood of 8 people who escaped death narrowly in an attempted eviction at Gitaraka village. The 8 are alleged to be involved in a 10-acre piece of land ownership wrangle where property worth millions was destroyed. Moige William with the details.
For the 8, even at the hands of police officer, their safety was not guaranteed. Angry residents were brave enough to storm a police line, baying for the blood of the 8 who were allegedly involved in an attempted land invasion on a 10-acre piece of land said to belong to former Karaba councillor Michael Kilonzo.
Hii ufahamisi umeenea kila mahali. Juzi tulikuwa ngambo ile, mtu mwingine alikuwa amefahamiwa hivyo, akafanyiwa tu gharama kama hii unaona.
Na watu ni wezi.
ambao ni wezi ambao kwa maoni yangu nataka kusema wanataka kushitakiwa kwa robbery with violence.
According to Mzee Kilonzo, the over 50 youth who he claims to have been hired by persons he did not name invaded the vast 10-acre land and destroyed his homestead and property worth millions of shillings.
Hii milango yote walipepa. Kila kitu iko hapa walikuwa wanapepa na dirisha na pesa zangu.
So many things at school.
Kuna vitu mingi walipepa tu. Milango, dirisha, kila kitu walikuwa.
Hata hakuna kitu. Mtu hawezi akakuja kufukuza mwingine sababu anapepa karatasi in the name of a title. Mwenye kukaa na haki, karatasi yake iko na haki. But I condemn, this activity must be condemned with the strongest word possible.
The former councillor revealed that it is when his wife was milking the cows that the 50 youth stormed into his compound telling him to vacate. He raised an alarm and residents responded immediately. Confirming the incident, Mwea Police Commander Crispin Ogutu said 3 people were injured in the attempted eviction and were taken to Kembembe Sub-County Hospital in Kirinyaga.
During the skirmishes, in the attempted eviction, 3 people got injured. And so far the 3 have been taken to hospital, Kimbimbi. They are under medication.
The police boss also confirmed that 8 people who were among the people destroying the property without a court order were saved by police from angry residents who wanted to beat them up and are being held at Gitaraka police line as investigations continue. Mwigi William, TV47.
Now let's make sense of shillings and cents in the world of business. The Kenya Pipeline Company has announced a 21% increase in profitability in the last financial year, giving an interim dividend payment of 5 billion Kenyan shillings to the National Treasury, barely a day after the president put unprofitable state agencies on notice with a threat of dissolution. This as the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, saying that despite the government's investment of 5.7 trillion shillings in state enterprises, the return on investment stands at a mere 0.13%. About 140 state-owned enterprises are now on the chopping block as the government intensifies the push for better returns on investments.
We want to give that strength to the board, the management, so that they can innovate and help us in terms of creating value. The work and the role of government is actually to invest in those areas that provide and optimize public goods. But those who are acting in that space should give us those returns in terms of showing that they are optimizing that space, they are fit for that purpose, but they are also conscious that the government requires some returns.
That's not been a challenge to the extent that the space of petroleum in Kenya and in the region is really run by the private sector. And we only came in on the G2G to support the tight monetary policy at that time, when dollars to pay for the oil products. And you know, oil products in Kenya takes about 30% of the forex.
Elsewhere, dividends to Equity Group shareholders remains at 4 shillings as the firm announces a profit of 43.7 billion shillings. Equity Group CEO James Mwangi says this puts the proposed year-on-year dividend payout to 15.1 billion. The group's year-on-year net profit, however, dropped by 5%, faulted on interest rate adjustments that were prompted by the upward revision of the base rate by the Monetary Policy Committee.
Profit before tax of 43.7 compared to 46 last year, 5%. So the board, in its wisdom, resolved to give the shareholders a record dividend of 15 billion shillings. That dividend is 4 shillings per share. The dividend payout is 36% of the entire 43.6 billion has been given to the shareholders.
And now we go for a very short break, but when we do come back, we have sports news, and later on, we take you to the marketplace. But for now, don't go too far.
safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi